Welcome to Databite Weekend, our weekly show, a space where we don't debate, we decode. In every episode, we bring you hard government data, numbers that rarely make it to prime time screens but shape the truth behind policy and propaganda. Data Bites is about cutting through the noise with facts, showing how official data often tells a story the headlines don't. By understanding these numbers, you, the citizen, gain power to question narratives, to hold governments accountable, and to see where the system works and where it quietly fails. Because in the end, data doesn't lie, it only waits to be seen. Tonight's Data Bite looks at one of India's most feared and least understood laws, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, or the UAPA, a law that measures not just crime but time. UAPA began in 1967, a law against secession, but over 5 decades it evolved into India's most stringent anti-terror framework. In 2004, after quota was repealed, its toughest provisions were folded into UAPA. But over the years, amendments in 2004, 2008, and 2019 transformed it into one of the strongest anti terror frameworks in the world. 2008 brought the post Mumbai amendment, longer custody, broader definitions, and the creation of the National Investigation Agency, the NIA. The 2019 change allowed the government to label even an individual, not just an organization, as a terrorist. A new line was crossed. The government could now label individuals as terrorists without trial. And hidden deep inside the Act, Section 43D5 lies its most feared weapon. Under this section, bail becomes nearly impossible. Courts must assume the prosecution's story is prima facie true. That one clause makes freedom before trial almost impossible. In short, UAPA is not just a law to punish terror, it's a law that can confine before proving guilt. India's legal system allows three kinds of custodies, each one with a different logic but similar outcome. The UAPA is a punitive law meant for investigation, charges, and trial in special NIA courts. But alongside it sits two preventive laws, the National Security Act, the NSA, and the Public Safety Act, the PSA, in Jammu and Kashmir. The National Security Act, or NSA, is preventive. NSA allows detention for up to 12 months without trial. And in Jammu and Kashmir, the Public Safety Act, or PSA, goes further. 2 years of detention on administrative orders, no trial, no charges. So while the UPA demands a case, a charge sheet, and a courtroom, the NSA and PSA simply demand suspicion. In practice, they often work together. When one law custody ends, the other begins. Together, they blur the line between under trial and under control. The label changes, the cell does not change. Between 2018 and 2022, India saw 8,947 arrests under UAPA. Only 252 people were convicted in that same window. That's a conviction per arrest ratio of roughly 2.8%. In 2022 alone, the Ministry of Home Affairs told Parliament there were 1,005 new cases registered, yet convictions that year totaled just 36 with 153 acquittals. When you put it simply, thousands are jailed, few are convicted, and even fewer are released on bail. It's a law where the process itself, not the verdict, becomes the punishment. So, where do most of these arrests happen? Four states stand out sharply above the national average: Jammu and Kashmir, Uttar Pradesh, Assam, and Manipur. Together, they account for nearly half of India's total UAPA arrests. Each has its own story, but the pattern is unmistakable. Detain first, prove later. In Jammu and Kashmir, the numbers tell a chilling story. Over 2,600 arrests have been made between 2018 and 2022, the highest in India. Yet, very few convictions. Here, UAPA often overlaps with the Public Safety Act. Take journalist Asif Sultan, arrested in 2018, granted bail, then immediately booked under PSA and rearrested. Released in early 2024, then detained again within days. This is the J&K pattern. The moment one legal route closes, another opens. UAPA, PSA, and preventive orders rotate to ensure continued custody, even without a trial. In Uttar Pradesh, UAPA has gone far beyond terrorism. From 2018 to 2022, there were more than 2,100 arrests, making it the second highest in the country. In 2020 alone, 361 arrests, more than a quarter of all India, were in Uttar Pradesh. The case of journalist Siddiqui Kappan stands out. Arrested on his way to report in Hathras, he spent over 2 years in jail before the Supreme Court granted bail. UP's interpretation of unlawful activity often includes protests, expression, and assembly, pushing UAPA into spaces it was never meant to govern. Assam, with its long history of insurgency and border tensions, has seen UAPA used as a security blanket. In 2022 alone, 133 new cases were registered, a high figure for a small state. But conviction data remains negligible. The law is often invoked in protests, environmental movement, and local dissent, framing law and order as national security. In Manipur, UAPA functions as a tool of control amid ongoing conflict. Police records show dozens of cases filed even during curfews and internet shutdown. The accused are rarely tried swiftly, many languish for years without clarity on charges. The result? The law has become a long term substitute for governance itself. What makes these four states such outliers? First, layering of laws. UAPA paired with PSA or NSA extend the custody. Second, 43D5 bail bar, which forces courts to assume guilt before the trial. Third, slow charge sheet filing, up to 180 days legally allowed and then often delayed further. Fourth, selective invocation, from separatism in J&K to protests in UP. And finally, judicial backlog, where trial delays make custody indefinite. The result? A few states generate a majority of detention but barely any verdicts. Let's bring faces to these numbers. Omar Khalid, in custody since 2020, bail denied multiple times, Supreme Court hearing still pending. Siddiqui Kappan, 2 years before he was released. Asif Sultan, bail, rearrest, bail again. Father Stan Swami died in custody at the age of 84, waiting for trial. Each name tells the same story. When bail is structurally impossible, time itself becomes the sentence. Nationally, 2.8% of UAPA arrests end in conviction. In J&K and UP, the effective conviction share is below 1%. Average detention under UAPA before bail about 3.5 to 4 years, more than double of the IPC average. These states don't just arrest more, they also release slower and try later. They are statistical outliers and constitutional stress points. In UAPA bail hearings, a familiar sentence appears. The court finds the prosecution's case prima facie true. That one phrase from Watali in 2019 effectively locks the cell door. Judges cannot question the evidence until the trial begins. Najeeb 2021 tried to carve out a human exception, saying long delays violates liberty, but later benches added caveats. Delay alone is not enough in grave cases, thus the law tightens even as the trial stalls. The average UAPA under trial spends over 3 years in custody before even reaching the trial stage. For many, bail becomes a distant dream. This is why legal scholars call it punishment by process. The state's power lies not in conviction but in custody. When we map arrests, cases, and convictions side by side, one truth stands out. The law's use is expanding, but its success in proving guilt is shrinking. In other words, UAPA has become an instrument of control through time. In J&K, UP, Assam, and Manipur, the scale of detention isn't a sign of stronger justice. It's a symptom of weaker accountability. So tonight's Databite leaves you with one simple question. If thousands are arrested but only a handful are convicted, what does that say about our justice system? In a democracy, law should protect liberty, not postpone it indefinitely. UAPA may have been built for national security, but in practice, it now measures how long freedom can be suspended without verdict. Data doesn't lie, it only waits to be seen. And that's what Databite Weekend will always bring to you, this story beneath the noise. Thank you for watching.